Well, hello, creatives, community, kind folks. Hello out there. Welcome. I am your dreaded DM. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome to this Crunch Time Tuesday. Really appreciate you guys being here. Either here live on Twitch, YouTube, or our Discord server. All the cool kids hanging down in the boiler room. Or if you're catching this later on, you are, of course, equally welcome to join on in to the channel. Yesterday, had a little bit of a just slight preamble as well. Had an interview with a great luminary who's been in the content creating business for a very long time. Yeah, and we had a great conversation with Master the Game. I suggest going over to Master the Game, absorbing everything that Juice has been doing over there for many, many years. And we were having a great conversation. I'm pretty sure he's going to keep it up on his channel, but got cut off for a power outage. I believe someone hit a pole and took out a transformer and knocked the power out in the whole neighborhood. So didn't have any power for like 3 hours. So sorry. All right. So this, for those who don't know, we take a subject and we talk about it all week long, and then we subdivide that down by each day. So today is Crunch Time Tuesday. We are talking about random encounters. Now, Dungeons and Dragons historically has embraced the idea of random encounters, and many other role-playing games do the same thing. And we thought we'd go about defining what random encounters are. What do you consider a random encounter, if at all? And then we're going to talk about some mechanical bits and pieces we can use or steal or think about, maybe that we haven't been thinking about for our random encounters in the first place. One of the things in random encounters is whether you consider something to be random, but it's not part of a die roll in the game. Like, for example, or whether you tend to think of the random encounter to fall instead on the idea of just simply inspiration. For example, you're at a table with your friends, you're playing in real life, and you look around the room and something catches your eye that inspires you because you're maybe stuck on an idea, or one or more of the players are trying to come up with a great idea, or they're analyzing the evidence in front of them, and you realize that you think they're going down the wrong path. Hey, Andres Martin, thank you very much for popping back in here, dude. So maybe you are like enamored by where the players are going, and you throw out your old idea and you're like, yeah, their idea sounds a whole lot better, so I'm picking that. Or you get online or something, you go to the Google, I'm feeling lucky, and pick one of their random, one of the random things that appear on your Google homepage or something. Like, do you consider that random as well? So just something to think about when it comes to randomization. Also, whether conceptually you may come up with, say, 10 different encounters that you've been thinking about, maybe not specifically for this game that's coming up, but maybe you've been thinking about, wouldn't it be cool if, and you decide to use some maybe oldie but goodie monsters or something, or, hey, I haven't done this kind of encounter in a long time, or there was an old NPC that used to pop in and out from various games, maybe I should include them, and you really had no intention of using any of it, but you decided, well, I've got 10 of them, I'll roll a D10, and you pick one of your old ones. Would you consider that a random encounter? And the reason why I'm putting these forth is because maybe our conception of what a random encounter is might switch or change or vary based on the individual and or the circumstances, So the classic random encounter, of course, is a table with numbers next to it and some particular die mechanic to come about with picking something that's on that list. So, of course, with a random encounter table, you want to have various options in it. And this is where the idea of in our role playing community, there's like a niche part of the community that's into dice and probabilities, and the idea of minimizing or maximizing your probabilities comes into effect when it comes to making a really good, dynamic, um, even shall I say, bring verisimilitude in your setting into a random encounter table. So an example would be if you roll a die 10 and you have options from 1 to 10, there's an equal opportunity for you rolling a 1 or a 5 or a 7 or a 10. But if it's percentile dice and you're rolling two or more dice, you have a greater propensity to get something in the middle of a number between 1 and 100, simply by virtue of chance, and then applying a random encounter where, say, you're picking numbers like if you roll a die 10, but you say, well, 3, 4, and 5 comes up with one option, 6, 7, and 8 comes up with another option. You're making your random encounter table have a greater chance that one thing comes up more than another, which is perfectly fine, especially if you have extremely powerful entities in your random encounter and very common, um, very common in terms of like their capabilities, very low level, 0 level creatures, 1/4 CR creatures, 1/8 CR creatures, or something that the Plecies might bump into, as well as in your setting, like what is considered common. Like, for example, if you're running your own homebrew Dark Sun world, how often will they, bump into Thri-kreen or cannibalistic halflings? I don't know. It depends on you, but maybe they are far more common, even if considered uncommon, than say a true dragon or a fiendish being or something. Um, I'm kind of hinting around one thing very common that has been placed into random encounter tables that I feel like your modern context players don't have a way to, they have had very little, if any, experience with this. And that is the fact that not only did random encounter tables have a number of different options, even things that game masters might not have been aware of, unless you're playing a module, in which case they probably curated a random encounter. Like I keep bringing up the the Isle of Dread, which was module X1, and they had random encounter table inside of it. And you're on a jungle island, so all the options in it were jungly island things that you would come across. Now, mind you, a random encounter table doesn't have to have monsters on it at all, let alone every option be a monster. It could be an old crypt or debris found somewhere, or an encampment with all the people that are dead, or a place of construction but the workers are gone, or a sunken pit with spikes down in it, and there's blood. It looks like something had fallen in it, and whatever was in it was taken out. Like, you could have a random encounter table with things in it that are just happen to be things for the players to investigate, to of course info dump on your players by having them interact with the world to give them particular information. I mean, if they come across a lonely road and there are exactly 103 victims on spikes on either side of the road lining the road, and their dead bodies are drawing like maggots and flies and buzzards and whatnot, that kind of gives them a clue as to what this world is like and where they're heading, right? So while it might not be exciting and die rolling or anything, it might be a great way for you to impart information, giving them some die rolls, maybe giving them some skill rolls and things of that nature. Even weather events could be included in a random encounter table. But one of the things that is embraced with the classic encounter table is having things on it that are significantly less powerful and more powerful than the player characters could encounter. And this can't, the good part of it was this would bring about a this would bring about this idea that the world is not set up for the players to always encounter things they can fight. And I think in a modern context, and I'm being very general, in a modern context, a lot of players are used to, well, if the game master inserts it, it must be something we can fight, right? And um, in many ways, the reason for the random encounter tables in the first place was, hey, you were deep down in a dungeon. We can't sit around in these rooms taking long rests, even though long rest didn't exist in its formally, but we can't sit around and, opening up a tent inside of a dungeon cavern, because who knows what might stumble by, and there's a good chance that whatever stumbles by, we won't be able to fight. We're going to have to run from it. you know Andres says, I just finished DMing an Isle of Dread campaign. Oh, okay. The PC's got two saber-toothed cats as a random encounter at level 3. Instead of attacking them instantly, the cats stalk them for days. See, and that's the thing, right? Like, sometimes the random encounter table might not have any details on it. And this is a great opportunity to express your own, to get some inspiration and express your own desires to fit that random encounter table into your world. So let's say you get online and you're stuck for ideas and you're just rolling your eyes like, God, man, I can't think of anything. So you get online, you Google search, you go to a website where, and believe me, there's plenty of them, where they have tons of random encounter tables, some of them curated for like region, like desert, mountain, coastal, underworld. Like, you can find those. You can even try to find them in WotC, Wizards of the Coast, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which was a book they released. In it, they have random tables that are based on tier level, right? So if you really don't want 3 goblins and 5 dragons to be on the exact same random encounter table, you could find one that's curated by like a general tier level, which is a good thing. But even then, sometimes those tables don't have any details on it. Like Andres, and I'm butchering your first name there, dude. So I apologize for that. But your point is made, right? They're on the Isle of Dread. It's a jungle place. There's saber-toothed tigers. Those tigers don't have to attack anyone. They can stalk the PCs for days, right? They're just far enough out of reach, just far enough where the PCs can't run them down, just far enough where I'm going to shoot a magic missile at them. Well, they're kind of hidden in the background. Or the same thing happens with, say, a pack of wolves, where you can hear them baying maybe in the background or at night or something. Yeah. Maybe Dante says, ugh, I need to randomly encounter some coffee. Yeah. Pour yourself some butt weasel coffee if you can. Oh, Rickard's here. We can get the argument going. Says it, Twitch, you say that spell sniper, Eldritch Blast to the rescue. Right? Yeah, you're right. Unless you're playing in using one of my cinematic environments books, which hasn't been written yet, but assuming that it's in the future. In Rainforest, there will be certain details like disadvantage on like opportunity attacks and disadvantage on ranged attacks because of the thick foliage and all that kind of business. But that's just a personal plug from my end. Yeah. Ricker's like, how far away did you say they were? As they point their finger and sniper Eldritch Blast them in the distance. But my point being is that using a random encounter table could just be a matter of inspiration. And I'll repeat this for Rickard's sake so that he can get his argument started against them. I'm picking what you do. Is the idea that we don't need to despite the fact that sometimes we tend to do this as a community, like we don't need to shut off our creativity simply because we decide to find some random table and roll on it, right? Like we shouldn't be you guys spell snipering. Putting on like the purple and green and yellow paint on their face, day glow colors, like yeah, doing the montage and whatnot. Um, talk about Tesla's like has a scope attached to the staff, but the thing for me is that much like when we start arguing and rolling our eyes at like armor class or falling damage or random encounter tables, like we're talking, our creativity doesn't have to stop, right? It's not. I understand that we have been trained to want to get to the front door of the adventure, and encountering random things along the way feels like it. We have preloaded ourselves to assume that none of that has anything to do with the game in front of us. But in many ways, it tells us what the world is like. It tells us how dangerous the world is out there. It gives us it's a DM tool for it's a DM tool for creating tension and pushing the action forward. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Now, Rickard says, as for argument, random encounter table is great for prep work. Don't like them as on the fly encounters mid session, and that's where I was coming up with the definition of what do each of us ourselves consider a random encounter. Is it a random encounter if I roll on the tables 3 weeks earlier to be inspired, or I'm stuck because my players decided to not go into the dungeon crypt even though I prepared. Instead, they want to walk around the jungle island and go back down to explore the coastline, and I wasn't prepared, and now I've got to pull out something somewhere out of my ass, and I go, well, let me roll on this random table to be inspired by it, right? It depending on your definition, that's what may happen. Also, right, and Rickard says, for me, a random encounter is rolling mid-session. Otherwise, it's an improv tool, right? I mean, hell, I hate to say this, I rarely roll on random tables, but I like to read them, though, because much like Adam Coble has said on his channel many times, tables are setting, right? Tables are lore. If you come across a game that has some sort of like randomizer in it, whether like I'll bring up a Dead Man's Guide to Dragon Grin, which was just released by Absolute Tabletop. They in their game they have got a ton of random tables, and the random tables can be like titles for nobles, or the type of mounts you would find in this community, or geological formations that exist in this chaotic realm, or what kinds of I don't know what kinds of stalls will you find in the local market, right? Those are the kinds of things, while not necessarily true encounters, the random table gives you a clue as to the setting material. So a good random encounter for a jungle island might be significantly different than one for the accursed desert, right? And if you're randomly picking a random encounter table, maybe you might want to curate it a little bit, write some notes down, reskin some of the monsters. Maybe instead of that purple worm being underground in your jungle island adventure, maybe you reskin it as some kind of, jungle snake or jungle worm or something with like green skin and leaves all attached on its back, and it has a particular name given to it by the residents of the island or something, right? You start to reskin things, Rickard says, 3 weeks earlier, it gives you a chance to tailor the encounter into a full set piece that fits in with the campaign. And it's talking about posting a larger example in Discord, which is perfectly fine, right? If you roll on that encounter table 3 weeks earlier, you can come up with names for NPCs. Maybe you feel like you have a greater comfort by rationalizing why the player characters are encountering whatever it is in the first place. And like Andres Martin mentioned earlier about having his player characters, they're level 3 and they're being stalked by these two saber-toothed cats. Like, why is the encounter happening? If it's a living creature or a sentient creature, why is that encounter happening in the first place? It's not. I think psychologically we tend to think again that, well, there's 3 encounters, but it has 0 impact on the current campaign. No, maybe there are scouts or soldiers or agents of the Dark Lich that's in the jungle crypt that are patrolling the region for a specific reason. Maybe there's a cultist looking for remnants of a broken fragments of a powerful magical item that happen to have been, or rumored to have been, scattered around. And they happen to their headquarters happens to be in the front door of the dungeon where the crypt temple is, but maybe their agents are wandering around, or maybe there are native peoples or creatures that have been kicked out of their homes because these cultists have moved into the temple or the crypt in the first place. So it's like Rickard is saying, if it's 3 weeks earlier, this gives you an opportunity to really cement, like, okay, if there really is a blue dragon on this table in this jungle, why are they there? Well, maybe the dragon is meeting some, I don't know, jungle lich or something that's been summoned to it, and they're having a discussion, even though the dragon is from a desert isle far off the coast or something like that. So it gives you an opportunity to really cement the interaction. And then in like I was saying before, if you design your own encounters on your own and you design 10 of those encounters and you really weren't sure when they would come up or the players start to make a left turn, you might have already designed your own random encounter table unknowingly, because you've used a lot of this information. Cameron says, I think all random encounters should be able to be completed without combat. Things like situation or social puzzles. Right, maybe, the classic, we brought this up before, the classic owlbear, is in the woods. Maybe the PCs just leave some food behind and they walk the other way, and then all the owlbear wanted was something to eat, right? Or the PCs come across the caravan. Maybe it's just a conversation. Maybe it's just a great opportunity to have a conversation. Or heck, both sides hate each other, PCs and the enemy, and with hands on the hilt of swords getting them ready to draw them, but neither one of them wants to risk a combat because they're both interested in getting to where they need to go. I could see something like that very much happening in a very stereotypically classic, samurai Japanese style thing where both sides come to each other in a form of peace, even though they're complete enemies or something. Or the player characters are part of a war band and they're scouts and they've been ordered, don't engage the enemy, but the players come across a group of those warlike hobgoblins chopping down the part of the forest to use the wood to make an encampment, and they're forging weapons, and they've got slaves, and all the PCs are there like, listen, we can't get ourselves involved, but we sure know where they are, and we can put them on the map and let somebody know what's going on. That counts as an encounter too, in the sense that here's the situation, guys. Figure out what you're going to do with it. Now, Rickard goes on to say, encounter table rolled at during the session, you roll on a table and get a random encounter with a pack of wolves. Encounter table rolled 1 week prior to session, you get a pack of wolves, so you now set it up with the pack trying to herd the players to a tangle vine area that will let the wolves move freely, but the party will have more problems before attacking them. And then something like that starts at the beginning of the session with the players hearing howls in the distance and their horses being spooked and not wanting to head east. Right. And that's what you're saying there, Rickard, is like, sure, you're using the same mechanism, a random table, you roll on it. But like a week earlier, you're saying, well, now you get a chance to turn it into a real encounter. The wolves howling in the distance, the mounts being spooked and not wanting to head east. Maybe the pack of wolves remains at such a distance that, except for the eldritch blast sniper, right? They stay at such a distance that it's very difficult for the players to say attack them, because the wolves are trying to corral them into those tangle vines. And when the players encounter the tangle vines 3 days later, boom, now the attack happens and the players can barely, they've got the difficult terrain thing, or maybe the tangle vines are even alive and they start grasping at their ankles or something, or if they fall down in the tangle vines, it's difficult to get up. And now you've created I'm paraphrasing, but you've created in your head a well-developed encounter rather than rolling on it randomly. But I will challenge you that encounter that you set up with all that detail, you might not have even wanted to use that in this game, but the players make a left turn, which in that case, the well-developed encounter that you created could then arrive randomly due to situational events, right? I'm sarcastically picking with you, but really what I'm saying is that I think both of us are right. I think our context is just different, because listen, you probably came up with this on the fly just now. Why couldn't you do that after being stuck with your players and you're like, you're not going into the dungeon? Hold on, let me get a drink. And then you go off to the side to take a bio break, and while you're sitting on the can, pinching a loaf, you're like, oh, what am I going to do? I rolled wolves. I don't know what I'm going wolves howling, corralling them. Boom. You come back and now you become the man. You're like, oh, I was completely prepared, right? Well, true. Like Rickard is saying, the encounter is still custom rather than random. And I think that's where I think it's a nuance thing, right? Because I feel like if a game master could roll in that very instant, right there in the session, and come up with the exact same scenario while being rocked back on their heels and not knowing how to prepare, I still think that the outcome could still be the same. And if you're a great DM and you've got a great game face, I think the same thing could be the case. Hold on, Rickard. Cameron says, I'm sorry. Dante says, if you think about it, a rumor table is just a random encounter you hear in a city. Oh, the rumor tables. Yeah. Dungeon Crawl Classic still uses those with the rumors you could possibly uncover at the first couple of pages of the module, and they'll have a rumor table about what's going on. Like, for example, there's rumors about the scaled folk, and rumors about a creature with wings large enough to blot out the sky, and rumors about a creature so as large as a mountain that breathes fire and flaming acid out of its mouth and whatnot, and then of course there's a sage that has been asking around about books about dragons, and you're like, oh, I get it. Maybe this next adventure will have something to do with dragons or dragon-like creatures, right? It's gathering the rumors, and then those rumors could set up kind of like what Rickard is talking about, the random pack of wolves, or or have you cultivated this series of encounters where you've made them, you've had a week to think about it so that it becomes an encounter that is well developed in your brain, and then you have random rumors. So you have a series of 10 really well developed encounters, but you have random rumors, and then the PCs start trying to go for those story hooks. Oh, people, the farmers were talking about the pack of wolves that's out there, but maybe we'll go out into the fields and cross the fields anyway. So the PCs have randomly chosen to go left or right, but you've already set up the scenarios and things, right? Rickard says, The problem with doing it mid-session is that it doesn't give time to set up. So in the example with the wolves, you don't have the time to build up to it, right? Like the the idea that there are, like it's mentioned previously, you're in a jungle and there are saber-toothed tigers stalking you, or you're traveling through the rolling hills and the tall grasses, and the savannah or something, and you hear the wolves in the distance. Maybe, like Rickard is saying, you don't have time to set that up, unless of course you roll. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from rolling wolves on a random table. It doesn't mean that they have to be right in front of your feet and you trip over them. It could be roll, 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 wolves. Okay, you hear a howl in the distance, and then you keep the wolves in your back pocket to let it build up later on in the game, right? An encounter doesn't mean that you turn a corner and you run smack dab into it. It could just be an element introduced into the game. If you roll a hobgoblin outpost, maybe instead of PCs rounding a corner and seeing hobgoblins, all they see is a fire in the distance, right? It doesn't mean our creativity has to stop, but I do understand there are many game masters that are like, I can't think of those details on the fly, right? Right. Rickard says, but if you roll that far ahead of the encounter, why not roll 1 week earlier while prepping? True, true, but then you get into like we have to have a whole week about under prepping, over prepping, right? Maybe like I didn't prep anything outside the dungeon, I just prepped the dungeon. um Cameron goes on to say, I like combat encounters, but that should be a last resort type of situation, or a way for trigger happy players to learn they don't need to be excuse me, they don't need to be that way because the hungry wolf might want rations. Exactly. Well, I think again, I think this is just a mindset. It's almost a Pavlov's dog conditioning we've gotten from recent games, where things should be set for us to survive any encounter, rather than having an option to get past a thing because we know that the random encounter is doing nothing but draining our resources before we get to the front door of the dungeon, right? It's like, yeah, maybe we should avoid the owlbears and the wolves and the saber-toothed tigers because none of that is helping us get to where we need to go. Whereas the game master might, a week later, having rolled on that table, like Rickard is saying, maybe the wizard has already picked those things to waylay the players in the first place to drain their resources, so that when they get to the front door of the dungeon, they aren't as capable as they would like because their resources are drained, whether it's food, exhaustion, magical spell slots, and all that kind of stuff. Omen says a bunch of orcs run up to your party, but are actually just in search of drinking buddies. They also need help learning how to use a karaoke machine. Yeah, but in a way, having the idea that the things on your random encounter table describe the world outside, right? If orcs are willing to find drinking buddies and do karaoke, that tells you about the world. Even if it's not a combat encounter, even if the player characters don't even want to be involved in it, if they sneak over a ridge and take a look at the orcs getting drunk and singing really bad 80s tunes, it tells you about the world. Are they literally singing old 80s tunes? Maybe we're having some fun. Maybe this is a beer and pretzels, hey, this is a good idea to be funny, and we're just being sarcastic in our own world. Or maybe they're singing old bardic tunes, and the bard in the group is like, wow, they're actually singing one of my old songs. Like, that's bizarre that they're having fun, having a drinking game and singing one of my old songs. And again, it sets up the world of, sure, this encounter has randomly shown up, but it gives you a clue as to, are they dangerous? Is this place supposed to be, is it Dark Sun and everything wants to kill you with psychic powers? Or is this more Eberron where it's like high adventure and more, I guess, thought out kind of things? Rickard says, if you only prepped the dungeon, you either run the dungeon because you and the players agreed that the next session would be be the dungeon, or if it's not set in stone, you have under prep or under prepared, right? Yeah, always have a backup if the players go off the rails, which is, hey, we're talking about random encounter tables, right? Well, it like Rickard is saying, it doesn't have to be a random encounter table. It could just be, it's the 3x5 card idea, right? Where, you know what, if this goes off the rails, I have 7 possible encounters I may need to use, maybe not if they just walk through the front door. Which is, you know, maybe we should start using a little bit more in media res, right? Late in, early out, where you don't need to describe going to the tavern, getting the map, getting on a ship, going to the jungle island, hacking through the weeds, getting to the temple. Maybe you just go, okay, guys, 3 weeks ago, you were all in a temple with an old man that dropped off a map, and you decided to go on an adventure. And guess what? You're at the front friggin' door. You know, that kind of gets rid of all that, right? Just listen. Time pass, get in front, bam. Andrea says, Bohemian Rhapsody orc style. Galileo. Maybe they might have really good singing voices. We don't know that. Bard's like, damn, I want to start a rock group. But yeah, Dante says some of the Pathfinder books use rumors a bunch too. Also, their Iron Gods adventure path neatly wove the random encounter table into the objectives of a part of the story for the party. Like you need random encounters, you know, part 2 of the Iron Gods specifically, which again, you like Rickard has brought up, like maybe you should prep the idea so you could set up random encounters as part of your prep. So in other words, you've written down 7 3x5 card ideas just in your back pocket, just in case. And now you've decided, you know what? I'm not even going to decide for my players what they encounter. I like all 7 of my encounters. They're just random on this jungle island. I'm gonna do like West Marches, like a hex crawl, right? They're going to be randomly spread out on my jungle. I haven't even decided where they are, or maybe the community in this location of my world is very nomadic, so there's no reason for them to be in a specific place, or they're in the accursed desert and I haven't decided when or if an oasis should show up. I'll let my hey guys, you roll a d8. I rolled a 7. Great, you encounter an oasis, right? I already have the details of who's in the oasis and what's there, and if there's a magical effect of drinking the golden liquid that's coming out of the stream or something. Like maybe you've prepped it all, but now you've prepped your own random encounter table. You know, that's also a possibility as well by retroactively doing the thing. And remember, if you are over prepping, you're actually improving, right? All unused over prep is just improv fuel for the next time. So sure, you've done right your random custom scenes table, as Rickard is correcting me, that it might not just be, maybe we have established for ourselves psychologically that the words random encounter are triggering us, much like I don't know, alignment triggers us, or something. Sorry. Dealer Umbra says, kids, if you see a fountain of golden liquid, don't drink it. Why not? Isn't it lemonade? Ugh. Hey, you taste it. I'm not going to. No, taste it seriously. That's not lemonade. Really? That's not. You're right. Is it? That tastes like Minotaur P. What do you mean it's Minotaur P? Have you tasted Minotaur P before? No, but I'm thinking that's if I had tasted Minotaur P, that's what it would be, And then they start arguing, and then of course the saber tooth start stalking them, and that would be pretty hilarious, though. Yeah, don't drink the golden fluid. A fiendish devil is packed himself underground and starts watch me get the adventuring party. It starts like spraying golden fluid up. Healing potion. Pit Fiend is like, sure, fine, whatever. Oh man, Tesla says in the Paranoia adventure Orc Busters, a parody of Dungeons and Dragons, yeah. There's a wandering monster table. It's the table where the monsters sit around playing poker with each other when it's not their turn to wander. That's true. Very, very true. D'Umbra is like, you don't know where that's been. Well, actually, you don't know where anything's been. You're in the jungle adventure or the oasis with the golden fluid. Why aren't the people drinking any of it? No, you're the newbies. You go drink it. We'll just sit here and wait. Omen's like, it's kind of salty. Listen, seriously, did we really need to know that? Oh man. Oh boy, that's funny. That's well, listen, Omen, talking about in Shadowrun with music being techno, 80s music would be considered classic. Listen, 80s music is already classic and I'm pissed off about it because I'm an old grog. But yeah, Oasis of the Golden Fluid sounds like a 1E adventure. True. But like Rickard says, so going slightly back on track, but in the same vein, not all encounters are combat encounters. You know what? That's the one thing I know. Today's crunch, we've gone way off the rails here, but today being Crunch Time Tuesday, I think as a mechanic, right? Okay, let's talk about mechanics here. Designing encounters that are not always combat encounters makes sense for the game you're using, right? If you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and you are trying to tell the players that it's necessary for them to be well-rounded, socially, using their exploration tools, meaning like using their toolkits, climbing, jumping, swimming, working together, using some of their investigative spells, right? Maybe you really want the players to feel like the things that they've designed for their character are extremely useful and not wasted. Side note, how many times have we heard in the role RPG community, you know what, this is a dump stat, or these skills are useless because they never come up. Well, guess what? In your random, I'm going to call them custom scenes, maybe your custom scenes develop the use of, say, the medicine skill instead of healing trait, because the mounts for the party that you've come, the caravan you've come across in the accursed desert, maybe they're camels or riding lizards or something have been injured, and you need to find out what it was. Maybe it was an infestation or a disease or a parasite or something even worse that's come up. They don't have any physical injuries. Why are they acting crazy? Oh, they were attacked by some kind of psychic creature or psychic blast or something. They're not physically hurt, they're mentally hurt. Heal. Now we know that foreshadow, maybe now there's something psychic that might be coming over the next bend, right? So non-combat encounters, solving problems, maybe going across a raging river with a wagon full of gold might be the problem you need to solve before the raging river maybe tries to dump that wagon into the drink, or getting that heavy ass wagon across a rope bridge might be too difficult and you need to solve that. Using social interaction, finding a caravan and buying supplies, or using intimidation to scare off the kobolds, or using carousing and seduction because you've met a group of people and the party just wants to get drunk and engage in some debauchery with a group of um, you know, Romani styled travelers that are able to, stereotypically, read their future and oracle and tell them stories and exchange information or something, why not? Oh man. Omen says there's an old Filipino joke that goes, two guys see something that looks like poop on the ground. Guy number one says, look out, don't step on that poop. Guy two says, are you sure? And guy one says, let's taste it to be sure. Both guys taste the poop. It's poop. Good thing we didn't step on it. Yeah. Well, you know what? A big old pile of poop is a random encounter because maybe a good nature skill roll will tell you what kind of thing dumped the poop on the ground, and maybe, just maybe, if you stick your hand down in it elbow deep, you'll find out what it's been eating recently, i.e. exploration, finding out something, Now, Rickard goes on to say, prepping a few combat scenes that you can randomly draw on if you need is great, but also try to prep some, throwaway scenes in that they are not plot related. That gives the players another style of encounter, like puzzle encounters, skill challenge encounters, hell, even scenic encounters. Hell, yeah. Like, I think an encounter could even foreshadow things coming up, right? So, an example would be storm clouds. I'm going to pull on what your thread here about scenic encounters, puzzle encounters, skill challenge encounters. So, a scenic encounter might just be storm clouds or a, a ridge or a gorge that's very dangerous with sheer cliff sides. Now the players may not go there at this very moment, but if they see it, maybe the ground is broken. It's a blasted landscape and it's broken, and there's gouts of flame shooting up and smoke or ash or poisonous gases. And the players may not be headed that way, but you could foreshadow the storm clouds rolling in and there's thunder and lightning and torrential rain. You can foreshadow the deep gorge with the sheer sides and cliffs, and later on they get in a boat and they realize that they're down deep in the gorge and there might be enemies that might throw javelins down from above them. So you could set things up that won't surprise your PCs, but they are still in part of the game, right? Like they're classically throwaways, but in a way they still challenge the player characters, right? Sure, the barbarian and the paladin aren't hacking and slashing things, but this might be the opportunity for you to spotlight the bard and the sorcerer and the rogue who are climbing up to a place because they found a dead body in a tree and they've got to climb up there and investigate what happened and that kind of thing, right? So I'm with you with this idea of like, maybe there is something that's a throwaway. Maybe the throwaway is simply a conversation with travelers that are letting the PCs know about the assassination of, 3 of the local nobles. And the PCs are like, ooh, that's going to throw this place into chaos. I wonder if that's going to affect us. And then now you foreshadowed highly trained and armed guards patrolling this region where literally they weren't patrolling before, but someone assassinated the nobles. We've got to find the enemies. PCs look dangerous with all their weaponry. Maybe they are blamed for the assassination, and the assassination has nothing to do with the players. And this is just a lead-in for session number 8, right? Now Dante goes on to say you could treat a random encounter virus as having a will save against healing or spell resistance, thus requiring traditional medicine more often. Meaning like they upcoming. I know you guys can see. Wait, oops, right there. Our next release, Wetlands, has a lot of diseases and modifications where cure disease might not be effective, or using a healing thing that heals hit points before cure disease might actually exacerbate it, might actually increase the chances of the infestation because you're healing the infestation as well, that kind of thing. Cameron's like, I literally put there's a big old poop on the ground as a random city encounter in a module I'm making. Thanks, TPJ. Yeah, we're going to talk about. I was going to talk about the some of the reasons Rickard has made the point that creating cultivated scenes is a better technique than just having random rolls because you don't get the chance to set up. But I did want to talk about some situations where we actually might want to have a random table, and I was going to talk about cities and urban landscapes, right? I think you could put a slash next to that and call it a chase scene. If you want to do like a chase scene down a river or through the woodlands or flying on a airship through a dangerous pass or something, maybe you could do the random encounter table might be there situationally. It's because you are running through a vast urban city and random poop on the ground, random rabbit dogs, pack of dogs might nip at your feet, random pickpocket, that kind of thing. Mike Gould mentions that horror movies do this quite a bit. Fleeing animals, changes in weather, fog banks coming in, all preludes to something else. Yeah, your random table might have on it a foreshadow of things that might be coming up, this is just a personal note. It's why I don't often talk about traps, but I do like to talk about foreshadowing, right? If the players come upon an open pit with spikes in it in the jungle, that foreshadows that there might be pit traps later on in the jungle, whether they come up or not. So maybe in session one they see the open pit trap with the spikes and blood in the bottom of it, and they're like, oh, well, apparently somebody built the pit trap, something fell into the pit trap, we should keep that in mind. And maybe 3 sessions later, the PCs are running away from something dangerous in the woods, and oops, roll that disadvantage on your perception check to find that pit trap. Sorry, you fell into the pit trap, right? And now you haven't surprised them. It wasn't a gotcha. It was a random encounter. You saw a pit trap. Yep. Andreas says, Andres says, oops, moved a little bit. There we go. Random encounters are great for fleshing out the campaign or region without taking too much time or boring players with too much exposition. That's my thing. A random encounter. I know I'm reinforcing this random encounter table thing, make it a drinking friggin' game. But my point is, it's very easy shorthand to tell people what your world is like, right? So if they encounter a religious pilgrimage that worships a storm god, you've given away a bit of information about your world rather than reading off 60 pages of background that you've put on your own wiki page for your setting, right? You encounter these individuals, creatures, things in your world, monoliths, maybe later on they see a monolith that's literally drawing lightning out the sky and is striking the monolith or something, maybe later, after that, there's a flock of storm crows and they're or storm ravens or something, and they're flying through the air, and there's like thunderstorms and you see their dark wings flying through the air. Guess what? You've just told the players, yeah, you're in a region where you're probably going to be involving like weather, storm giants, thunder and lightning, maybe some other creatures in there, maybe that blue dragon that flew across the jungle 3 sessions ago, and now you're in a mountain region. Maybe that blue dragon is up there, like, living the dream, getting struck by lightning every once in a while. Yeah, it's the thunder and lightning. Yeah, thunder and lightning, very, very, very frightening. Yeah. I can't do the lyrics. Sorry, I'll get dinged for it. But yeah, like uh, Mike Gould goes on to say, a dead body in a in a high area literally was a foreshadow in Tremors. Yeah, man, I haven't thought about Tremors in a long time. Saying like pit traps with spikes are literally a method for hunting tigers. Now you should be on the lookout for a tiger or a were tiger, right? Yep. So yeah, you could. I mean, finding a dead body is great exposition. Okay, why is there a dead body? How did it die? What condition is the dead body in? If it's a half human, half tiger that's dead that fell in a pit trap, you now know someone somewhere built a pit trap, maybe to capture tigers, and maybe they know or do not know, or they are aware of where tigers that live in the jungle. You've just given out exposition without having to give out the exposition. You know what I mean? Andres Martin says, also, yeah, my name is pronounced like undress. It's weird, I know. No, like I said, I apologize for butchering names. It's my lazy lazy American tongue. but I I mean it honorably, despite the fact that my pronunciations are terrible. Cameron says my favorite trigger for a city chase is to have a pickpocket steal something. Oh shit! Dude, steal a single copper from a PC and they will open up a can of whoop ass. But I'm going. Let me continue to read this. Yeah, my my favorite trigger for a city chase is to have a pickpocket steal something from the party, like a weapon or a coin purse. Then I like having the pickpocket climb a building for a rooftop chase. You want to trigger PCs? Steal one thing from them, just one thing, and you can start a chase. Which I was I was going to kind of bring up for, you know, third pillar Thursday, but yeah, well, since we're coming towards the end, um, and we'll foreshadow. I will randomly foreshadow this encounter. Uh, um, a random encounter is very good for a chase scene where the things you come across. Come on, we've seen enough chase scenes to know some classic things you find in a chase. Okay. Um, I know a lot of chase scenes involve automobiles, but even with a foot chase, you have to have a fruit stand. You have to have one or more people with like a baby carriage or cart. Maybe there's someone walking pets or dogs or balloons, something with string or wire or cord attached to it to allow there to be some kind of like comedy of errors where someone gets tangled in it. You have to have a cart, a wheeled cart that, if pushed to once, like the fruit cart where it's top heavy, so something has to be knocked over and people trip and fall on it. You know. Thanks, Dead Man. I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah. Please feel free to join the Discord as well. Mike Gould goes on to say, I have an encounter for the thief chase that has an air genasi who can hide inside his own bag of holding. It becomes a city chase through a crowded market and a shell game with bags. Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. Yes, very. By the way, guys, Dead Man in the chat has basically posted like, please feel free to join the Discord and also like, share, subscribe, spread the word of the channel. Listen, tell your enemies about the channel, or maybe you're like too much iron in your diet and kind of need to loosen up your bowels. Although it's not been proven by the FDA, maybe watching and taking part in the channel live or catching it later on will help you loosen that up. You know, maybe instead of being impacted, you'll get some soft serve going on. 5 out of 4 doctors say, please come over to the channel and check us out. But yeah, I mean, I think while I wasn't really trying to pivot over into chase scenes, I do agree. Like a random chase table, or like Rickard is saying, setting up cultivated scenes that would be useful for a chase if a chase happens sounds like a good idea, right? Running around the corner and bumping into city guards while they're trying to drink that coffee that Dante was trying to randomly find. You know, maybe running across that pack of dogs or wolves that normally in the wilderness they would be wild, vicious wolves, but in this sense they're just scavenger dogs because you've already reskinned them as scavenger dogs that might half chase, half follow the PCs because the dogs are having fun because they think, great, we get to run with you without actually hunting the PCs. They're just running along with them. Maybe there's a group of vagabonds or pickpockets that try to string a rope across the road to trip the PCs in their chase, or you have a rooftop chase like Cameron mentioned, right? Where you have a rooftop chase and there's a slippery rooftop, there's an angled roof, there are tapestries and sheets and towels hung up that you can't see through. There's a dilapidated building you can fall through the roof. Maybe there's someone throws something catches on fire and there's a burning building. You have to do a lot of climbing, jumping, hanging by your fingertips, and blah blah blah. Right? All of those kind of things could happen in a chase scene, and maybe those are random. Heck, I even included in the cinematic environments with like um, okay, in the Blasted Lands book, there's like broken land, and I have random geological features in a a blasted broken landscape. So there's pillars that could are balanced precariously that could fall over. There are stone bridge-like embankments that you can walk across in a narrow pathway, hoping to keep your balance moving across it one at a time. There's angled stone that if you start having a fight on the angled stone, you can slip and slide and fall. Or if you try to cast that grease spell, it always flows to the east at a 45-degree angle or something like that. Hell, what is it? Tesla brings up. Omen says if it's dragon poop, there might be treasure or a powerful item in it. That said, I imagine dragon poop would be flammable. There are some creatures like purple worms and dragon turtles and things like that might eat perfectly good magic items and poop them out. Who knows? Michael says, great idea, DBJ. Now I want to run a chase scene over airborne boulders or islands. Yeah, being able to jump and leap from like one floating island to another, or maybe you could time it where the PCs find an island and could apply momentum to the island to have it move to bump against another distant island, and the enemy chasing them has to jump very far to get to it or something. Yeah, why not? Tesla brings up Assassin's Creed 2 has, in addition to guards with fixed positions or patrol routes, the occasional pickpocket or Borgia messenger who appears via off-screen teleportation. He can get anywhere if he's off camera for even a split second. Yeah, you're right about that. Moving at the speed of plot, right? Yeah, off-screen teleportation. Yep. And will disappear similarly if you fail to give chase. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood adds the Cento Ochi thieves. Cento Ochi is Italian for 100 eyes. Ooh. Thank you, Dead Man. So anyway, guys, yeah, we could go on forever with this, but I feel like although I'm probably conflating a hell of a lot of terminology, especially with Rickard being on the other side of the random encounter argument, which I love. I hope there's enough for you guys to think about this. Like, hey, do I really want to roll something random? Maybe I should find a table and like Rickard is saying, cultivate it, come up with great ideas a week beforehand before I come to it. Maybe you do feel comfortable and you're like, you know what? I'm not worried about it. I'll do it on the fly. Sure. We even have a Dungeon Master's Guide that gives us information on randomly rolling bad guys and scenarios and random dungeons and random things in the dungeon and stuff like that. So, yeah. Mike Gould says, and the islands and boulders actually move too randomly. What if two chases that don't know about each other intertwine? Ooh, I like that idea. A parallel chase? PCs are running because the guards are after them like, thieves, stop here. PCs start running like, we're not thieves. And then the thieves are running like, who are they? Maybe they're chasing us. No, they're being chased by guards. Maybe they're thieves too. They can't be thieves. We stole something. Well, maybe the guards are blaming them. Great, we're going to run. PCs are like, let's chase the thieves because the guards are chasing us. Yeah, I love that. Anyway, guys, we go on and on. We got to save something for the rest of the week. I have to thank all of you for just being part and parcel of of the show. I hope there's not too much sarcasm. I hope we've gotten a learned a little something. I know I have. But anyway, tomorrow is World Building Wednesday. Please join us for World Building Wednesday. I would really appreciate you guys stopping by. By the way, go over to Master the Game. There is a somewhat truncated interview I've been doing with Juice, who hosts his channel Master the Game, as well as like, I don't know, Check for Traps RPG, CFT RPG. Check them out. Check out Roll Stats and a bunch of other very good, heck, Raven rolls, you know, a bunch of channels that have no subscribers like myself, but are doing some really excellent work out there. Anyway, guys, everyone have a great one. I'll see you later. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I appreciate it. See ya. Bye. Thank you for watching.